Joining us now to talk more about these recent attacks on young children, by young children, of course, is Professor Catherine Ward from the University of Cape Town. Prof, good afternoon to you. Thank you so much indeed for joining us here on Your Story. Now, we've seen an increase really with younger children being arrested for murder and violent attacks. What can we attribute this behavior to?
So, I think one of the things that we have to recognize is that this is a shock because it's children who are committing these murders. But in a violent country like South Africa, where adults are committing these murders, many times a day, and with a homicide rate, a child homicide rate in particular, that's twice the global average, we might be shocked, but we really shouldn't be surprised. Our children are surrounded by violence, and children tend to do what they see adults do. So if adults are committing violence, we should expect that children should be committing violence. And I hope that's at least a partial answer to your question.
Yeah, no, it does indeed. So what we're seeing, Prof, is that these crimes, of course, are cutting across all social class. It's not just your poor kids, perhaps, that are committing these crimes. Kids from middle-income homes, have also been arrested for these crimes.
Yeah. One of the things that we need to look at is things that make it more likely for children to commit crimes. And really what we need to think about is a whole of society approach. So we need to start with child development from birth. Have children been born into families where the mother used drugs and alcohol while she was pregnant? Did they get enough food? That speaks to brain development. Did the child get enough food growing up? Are the parents warm, consistent, non-violent parents, or are they harsh parents who yell and hit a lot and they're inconsistent? Do they go to schools where there's a lot of violence? Are they surrounded by drugs, alcohol and violence in their communities? All of those things are factors that make it more likely that children will commit these crimes. And so to do away with these crimes, we really need a whole of society approach where everybody plays their role in dropping the level of violence, the level of drug abuse and related ills in children's environments. And then I think we're going to start seeing a decrease in this.
As you say, many people are, of course, saying that this is a societal problem, and you say that too, Prof, that we need to tackle this problem as a society. Where do we start? Where do we begin? Do we begin in our families, for example?
So we can't really point to one place to begin because all of us have to work together. So it's no good saying that, families are responsible if children go to violent schools. It's no good saying that schools are responsible if children go to are in violent families. It's no good saying that the neighborhood is a problem if the families and the schools are violent. It's no good saying that the families, whichever way around, the neighborhoods are a problem if the families and the schools are fine. So we actually need to approach all of those things together. And that's the way to start addressing these problems. We can't, there's no, my students always tell me I'm not allowed to say one silver bullet in this context, but I'm going to say it. There's no one silver bullet that's going to fix this problem.
And it really is very worrying to see a 13-year-old, really being capable of taking someone else's life. And what we're starting to see now is it's not just boys who engage in these violent activities. Of course, now you have girls. We've seen videos of girls attacking one another, doing the rounds on social media.
Yes, that is true, but, my answer is the same. It's a whole of society approach. I think that's the best I can say to you because there isn't really that much difference between the risk factors for violence in girls and the risk factors for violence in boys. So it comes back to the kinds of environments that children are being raised in. If they're beaten at home, beaten at school, exposed to drugs and violence in their neighborhood, there's a very high likelihood that whether they're girls or boys, they will turn out to be violent.
Just in conclusion, Prof, do you think that parents can be able to spot violent behavior from their children? Are there specific, perhaps, characteristics that they should be on the lookout for in their children?
Let me rather say this, that prevention is better than cure. So warm, consistent, non-violent parenting from the start will give your child the best start in life. But if your child starts showing behavioral problems, starts being disobedient, starts not going to school, even having temper tantrums at a very young age, switching to a warm, consistent form of parenting is the best thing that you can do for your child. And there is help available. Increasingly, parenting programs are being rolled out widely to support parents. And so that help is available. Even in very difficult contexts, parents can make a difference, but they shouldn't have to bear the burden alone.
That is a difficult one, Prof. We'll leave it at that. Thank you so much for coming through. Professor Catherine Ward from the University of Cape Town joining us live from our Sea Point studio.